Why I believe religion is fake. I'll talk about each religion without going to too much specifics, my experience with religion in general, and why I believe it's fake. First of all, I don't have a degree in religious studies. I'm not an expert in every religion. I only know the basis of each one of the religions and one in religion specific, which I know more about in general. So, this is all my objective opinion. Uh, you could believe me or you could not believe me. You could say this guy's talking shit. Okay. But I just want to get my point across. So, starting by looking at each of the different religions. Okay. First, let's talk about the Abrahamic religions. The three main ones: Judaism, uh, Christianity, and Islam. All three are based on the same book, uh, and they're just different versions of the book. Judaism came first, Christianity second, and Islam third. Basically, Judaism believes that Jesus was not the last prophet, and that Abraham was the last prophet, if I can remember correctly. And so they believe that that was the last prophet, and that's when the message of God ends. And they go based off that. Christianity, however, believes that Jesus was the last prophet, and he died for their sins. Different sects of Christianity believe different things, different interpretations of the book, either Catholic, Baptist, or what else? Evangelists. All believe different things within Christianity. Then we have Islam, which is the third iteration of the Abrahamic religion of the book, which basically says that Muhammad was the last prophet. So they all are based off on the same religion. It's just what prophets they believe and don't believe. So basically, if you believe that Jesus was the last prophet, then you're a Christian. If you believe that Muhammad was the last prophet, then you're a Muslim. And in essence, if you're a Muslim, you're technically Christian in nature, but you're not. But you just believe more things than they do, and they just believe less things than you do. But you all follow the same God, which is either God, Allah. I don't know how you say it in Judaism. I'm not too experienced on Judaism. Uh, Different beliefs around kosher and all that. Okay, so I gave a broad stroke around the Abrahamic religions. Now let's go to Satanists. Satanists is basically the inverse of the Abrahamic religions, and I would say mainly Christianity, where they basically believe that uh, God uh, is enforcing His will, and that Satan was freeing us by giving us free will, and they and it's a misconception that Satanists actually believe that they worship Satan. They don't. Uh, I would say some do, but that's not it's like extremists in every religion. They just believe that the that Satan gave them free will, basically. That God was not. God did not want us to have free will, and Satan gave us that free will, and they support him for just giving us the options and freedom. Uh, Satan, Lucifer, whichever you want. It's to put into perspective. If you've watched the Netflix show Lucifer, I was like bring up the Netflix show in the middle of like a conversation, but uh, Lucifer is basically that concept where Lucifer, the reason he did what he did was to give humans freedom and to just break out of God's plan, basically, and do his own thing. That's how Satanists view Lucifer. Okay, now to go to Hinduism. Hinduism basically believes in it's a multi. religion, no, multi-religion, a multi-god religion, which is uh, poly something. I can't remember exactly. I know Abrahamic religions are monolithic, uh, polythetic, which is basically they believe in multiple gods. It's not one god, different from the Abrahamic religions. And each god has its own purpose. It's similar to, I would say, the Greek, uh, which basically there's Zeus, god of thunder, uh, whatever, Hermes, god of speed, no, god of speed, no, messages. Am I? I'm not. I'm not. I'm not sure. Artemis, god of the hunt. Uh, Basically, each god has his own specific role, and the difference between Hinduism and the other religions is it's not based off a book in general. It's based off on a belief and way of life, to where basically the goal is to reach nirvana, which basically means that you let go of your worldly desires and just live as free as possible. So now, talked in general about each religion. I hope I did my best. Now let's go into specifics on my personal journey with religion. And I know, like, I had a video about my mom dying, and this has nothing to do. Like, my mom did not interfere with my view on religion, because some people might say you have a grudge against religion of what happened to your mom, and that's why you uh, don't believe in religion anymore, and that's why I had these like doubts before even she died, so that didn't come into play, honestly. So, well, I was I started off as Muslim. I was raised in a Muslim household in a Muslim country, up going with Islam till I would say about the age of 17, where I started have my doubts, and my doubts came from me. It's one main thing. Before going into that, so I grew up 17. That's when I believed in Islam, and then I turned over and I became agnostic. And being agnosticism is basically the belief that there could be a God, but he's not a God that's based off any of the religions. I'll go into some more specific details. So, I when I thought about religion and going through the religion, I used to going off of Islam. Islam, you're not allowed to drink, uh, sinful, basically. Uh, you weren't allowed to drink, eat pork. You were supposed to pray. Uh, sex outside of marriage. What else? Um, Kill yourself, suicide. Uh, those are the basic main ones, and I did none of those. And for speaking about specific ones, for example, smoking is a sin basically, but it's usually in most countries it's not viewed as a sin. It's just frowned upon, even though it's technically it's like in Christianity where like for example drinking is considered a sin, but usually people just drink. Okay, so now looking at what else? I lost my train of thought. Yeah. So, smoking, I never smoked. Reason being is because I just felt it's damaging. Even if it wasn't like haram, I just felt like it's damaging and like there's no benefit to it. It doesn't even feel good. Hey, you have to get addicted to it to for them to feel good. Then yeah, the addiction causes you for your health to get worse, and you also spend and waste money on the addiction. So I never saw like the upside to it. So I never like even if it wasn't haram, I wouldn't try it. While alcohol, what was stopping me from drinking alcohol was because religion. Because alcohol is poisonous and it is harmful. but it's usually harmful in large amounts. And I always thought about it where if it wasn't haram, I would try it, uh, just see what it feels like, what it is, and if I do like it, I like it. But if I don't, I don't like it. Okay, so that's the only thing that was stopping me from drinking. That's why. Eating pork, I don't eat pork. Nah, I stopped eating. I don't eat pork just because I find it disgusting in general, even if it wasn't haram. Yeah. Okay. So then after I turned 18, I then fully like kind of left Islam in my heart. Like I never like told, I never like went public with it. It's just because I don't feel like it's anyone's right to know. Um, so then, what the reason I left Islam? I felt like, and not Islam, religion in general. The main question that every time pops into my head, and that's the reason. And I asked a lot of scholars, uh, did my own research on asking the same question in every religion, basically. And my main question is, why would God create us? And I know that's the main question, basically. What's my purpose in life? But that's not the way uh, I'm thinking about it. It's like, what if, for example, going off Islam, uh, God created us to basically shape the earth and to worship Him. But what always comes to mind, and it doesn't make sense, why would God test us? For example, our in Islam, I'm going Islam because that's the one I know the most. So in Islam, uh, God puts on, and I think and I checked, it was like similar in most religions and all the religions I told you about. That's why like I didn't lean to one religion over the other. Because if that was the case, I would have become a Christian, for example. If Christianity had the difference in what an opinion in that aspect. So in Islam, it's basically, if you do, it's a test. If you do good deeds, you go to heaven. If you do bad deeds, sins, you go to hell. Based on how many good deeds, how many sins you do, you either go to hell or heaven, basically, with some caveats. So when looking at it, why would God bother testing us? Because it's always said that God is all omniscient. So basically, God knows what's going to happen and what's basically God, to put in perspective, God lives both in the past, future, and present. He sees all of that at once. So to him, time is not linear. To where, like, to him, tomorrow or yesterday or today is the same. For his from his perspective, it already happened, and it's already happening. So to him, for him to bother in going through a test to see what we do, and then judge us based on that test, doesn't make sense. Because if God or is omniscient, for God to be God, he has to be omniscient. If he isn't omniscient, then he isn't God. So if God knows what's going to happen, for him to wait until we do, like, if it, and that's a to do with the sin or good deed, it's a very linear way of looking at time. For God, that's not how he views time. He views everything that has happened and hasn't happened. So to him, he already knows the result of every person in the world, and who's gonna die, who's gonna live, who's gonna kill someone, who's gonna do this. So God has no reason to test us. That's what I always thought about. Why would God waste his time? To to him, is basically a waste of time. Like, why would he need to act like he doesn't know what's gonna happen for us? Compared, for example, to God, we would be nothing, basically. He could do anything to us, and we wouldn't be able to do anything, basically, in essence. So why would God need to test us? And even for him, for example, if you look at it as God is doing it as a game for himself, It also doesn't make sense because for God, He sees everything all at once. It's to put in perspective. A better example: if you've seen the show, the movie Watchmen, Doctor Manhattan, how he is very lifeless and doesn't and isn't very emotional because he sees everything happening all at once. He sees what has happened and what hasn't happened. So to him, it's pointless in essence because he already knows what everything's gonna happen. It's like watching a movie that you've already watched like 100 times. You already know the ending. You already know the beginning. You already know the middle. Everything's happening in between. But imagine putting that into scale to a million, basically. You've seen that happening a million times, and you've known every single thing that's gonna happen and has happened and will happen. So it's redundant in essence. Like, why would God even do that? So that's why, and no scholar has ever given me a good answer to that question. That's what made me fall out of religion. Because if if God has no reason to create us, then why are we here? And that's why I leaned and went into being agnostic. And agnostic is basically the belief that there, like I already said, I already explained it, where if there could be a God, but it's not God that's mentioned. To where like I could believe that there was a God that created us, but he left. Like for example, where if you play a game, you create a town, you create a thriving economy in a game. Sims, for example, you create a character, you create a house for the character, everything, all that. Then you just stop playing the game and leave and go somewhere else. I could believe that happened, but I don't believe God is watching over us and He's uh, testing us because it's pointless. It doesn't make sense logically speaking. Okay, getting that aside, I want to talk about the also the aspect, for example, of the sins and good deeds. Like I said, doesn't make sense since God knows what you will do and what you won't do. So it doesn't make sense at all. God wouldn't even need to entertain the fact of judging us, and he would. And for example, when people say He's gonna send us to heaven or hell, why does God even care whether we go to heaven or hell? To Him, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference to Him, basically. Like, why would God's ultimate goal for us, for to go to heaven or hell, and why would God, for example, and some people say we're here to worship God. For an omniscient being who sees and knows everything and all that, and an all-powerful being, to Him, just people He create, He has no reason to create people to worship Him, basically. That's very pointless because it it does nothing for Him. It does nothing for Him because you can't imagine someone who's basically a god who has everything, all knowledge, sees everything, all that. For Him to create people to worship Him, it's pointless to Him. So, and even if, let's say, for example, He created us to worship Him, the idea of us sending us to heaven or hell, and it's easier basically for Him. Let's say after we die, we just don't exist. That's easy. That's way easier for Him. Like there is no reason for Him to send us to heaven or hell. There's no advantage for Him because they say, for example, when you go to heaven, you no longer like worship God in essence. And so, and the whole idea of Adam and Eve and the apple and all that, it just doesn't make sense when you think about it. Now, to go into another view on religion, when I look back at how religions form, religions are usually based off any village society, like starting out group of people to create a religion eventually. even if they didn't start out with a religion. And that's how I believe religions formed. That yeah, now I'm looking at religion. That religion is completely fake, basically, to where like every religion was created by people. So you'll find that, for example, in multiple societies all over the world in all centuries, created a religion in any way possible, and different kinds of religion, either monoistic or polytheistic, where there are multiple gods or single gods. For example, Greek, ancient Egyptians, Romans. What else? Uh, not talking about the Abrahamic religions. For example, there were religions of tribes where they believe spirits and all that. Every religion, every society will eventually create its own religion. The reason that people create their own religion is people want something to explain the unknown, basically. Because if you can imagine people in the past all alone, just a village, they have to have a reason for being there, and have reason to hope that someone's going to help them get them out of their situation, something to pray to solve their situations. And if anything bad happens, they can pray to that as a coping mechanism. Basically, that's how they cope with the unknown, and not knowing what's going to happen, and needing help, something to feel like they can do when they can't do anything. Any society that starts up will eventually create their own religion. I know I've said that, but it's very true, because if you look at it, every society needs and religion also. The reason it is being created also is it sets a moral standard, basically, to where it sets rules in a way where you have to follow these rules to be good, and these rules you'll be bad. How to do good deeds or bad deeds if you do this good thing, because every religion is basically based off on that kind of concept, where if you do good you get good, do bad you get bad. And I feel like that helps every society in developing, having a religion to look at, having somewhere people can look up to, basically, people having a purpose. Because some people do need a purpose in life, and they, for example, them believing that there's a higher power and there's a reason for everything helps them in living, basically, their lives. So I believe that religions were basically all religions right now were based off on that. And also, if you if you look back at it, when, for example, one of the Abrahamic religions was created, people say you have to have faith that all those things happen, and how. But for example, I if I was in the past, for example, I could have literally made up anything, and they would have zero proof that I was not correct, for example. And some people say, well, they did miracles. And what I would say to that is, look at the Greek pantheon, basically. They created the god of thunder, Zeus, based off of thinking that there's someone who controls the thunder. They created god of war, who basically made people go to war and support the wars, basically. So what's stopping? What's the difference between that and the religions we have now? Nothing. There was no proof that there was a god of thunder, but they created a god of thunder. So what's to say that the miracles and stuff that's said in those books are real, and they're not just a made up imagination of other people? And the thing is, it's funny how people can have think that people are scammers. For example, right now, you can look at someone who does something on the internet and say that he's a scammer, he's scamming people. But when they look at something that happened in the past, they're like, there were no scammers in the past. There were definitely people scamming in the past. Like, how can you know, for example, and no offense to any religions, but let's say Not talking about any specific religion specific. Let's say this prophet, his miracle was doing, let me do a random thing, turning a table into a chair, for example. How can you know that that person was just scamming people back then? And just, for example, like magicians now, but magicians, the tricks are fake. But for at the past, if you're good enough, for example, if Chris, not Chris Angel, not Chris Angel, David Blaine, for example, if David Blaine was sent back into the past, they would literally view him as a god, basically. If he would do what he did now, they would view him as a god. That's basically what I mean. If he was put in that situation, people and did his tricks, no one was gonna be like, that's fake, because they never thought about tricks and magic. Basically, that's something like that was fake and could be possibly faked. So we could have a religion based on Dave Blaine if he was living back then. And who's to say that we didn't have like someone like David Blaine back then, who did these amazing tricks that people think are unbelievable and could never be done unless he has powers, for example. When in reality he actually has tricks that no one else knows. And no one and for example, you can't disprove these tricks now because you don't know how or what, you weren't there basically to know how everything happened. And it's funny how people believe so much in a book of events told by people, when some people now, for example, believe in aliens. For example, I believe in aliens, but I don't believe that aliens have actually come to Earth. For example, some people believe in aliens that have abducted them. Like, why the fuck would an alien abduct you? But no offense. But they believe in aliens, and they think those people are whack jobs. And for example, people that believe in the flat Earth, they believe those people are whack jobs. But if though, what makes you think that there wasn't those same people writing those books in the past and seeing things and seeing things in the sky and believing in this happening and that happening, and it could be just natural occurrences. To emphasize also another point, for example, natural occurrences that could have happened in the past, for example, let's say a volcano exploding, could be viewed then, and it was viewed then, for example, as the gods being angry. So natural occurrences that we know the explanation of now, that they did not know the explanation of then, one of those people could have used that as a trick into basically showing them a miracle. Basically, let's say, for example, one of the guys went and told them, "I'll make this mountain explode," and then a volcano occurred. People did not know back then that, for example, tectonic plates and earthquakes and all that caused that explosion. So they believe that that person is the one who caused the explosion. Stuff like that. That you can disprove now because you don't know the events that led to that happening and the behind the scenes of everything. So that's why I believe that religion is basically fake. Because what makes you sure? And I'm not trying to say this to basically throw shade on any religion. It's just how I feel. And if you want to believe me, believe me. If you, it's in my opinion, basically. All in the end, though, and then other things. It's all of my opinion. I could be literally talking shit, but it's what I believe. Any society will eventually create a religion, and it's basically the one that you believe the most. Because we could have, for example, ended up believing in the Greek gods or the Roman gods or Egyptian gods, but we just so happen to believe in the Abrahamic gods, for example, like the God. And if you think about it, what's the real difference between the two? In essence, I know you might be like, one of them is talking about mythical creatures, stuff that is very unbelievable. But if you look at the books, they also talk about stuff that's very unbelievable. What makes those more believable than the others? Yeah, that's my opinion. Honestly, I think that's literally everything I just want to say. Honestly, I don't think there's any. I'm just trying to go through with my thoughts. If there was anything, I'm just going off my brain. On basically, I have nothing written down, so I just need to, let me think about something. Is there something I'm missing? I wanted to talk about. Another point I thought of, uh, when if you think about you yourself, how you became, whichever religion you follow, how you became, for example, a Catholic, how you became a Muslim, whatever religion that you currently follow. Not all people, but most people, the religion that they follow till this day is the religion that they were born into, and that's why they follow that religion until this day. So you as a person, you follow this religion and you have all this faith in that religion. Yet, if you were born into a different family, or if it's the same family but they follow a different religion, you would be that. You would follow that religion and have the same faith. Uh, for example, if you were Catholic and then you were, and if you and you believe in Christianity, and then you were born into a Muslim household, you believe in Islam and believe Christianity is wrong, and vice versa. So this belief and faith you have in that religion that you were born into, what makes you so certain of it? If literally it, everything could change basically if you were just born into a different religion, someone else taught you a different religion, and you believe that because when you're taught something from a young age, I don't want to make this comparison, but it's grooming in a way, but it's not it's not the same degree. It's but if you were basically your mind was melded from a young age to follow this religion, in your mind there's nothing to doubt. And since it's something, for example, if your parents taught you um, to, for example, every time you lock the door, do a circle around yourself, do a circle, you would do that. But eventually you reach a point either in your mind or other people will be telling you, what are you doing? For example. And then you'll be like, yeah, why am I doing this? But with religion, there's nothing that would give you that doubt, in essence, to where, because since it's all based on faith, and if you have no faith, then you're bad. So that's why I believe the people that are very strong headed, I, I, I fully support that, and I admire that you have that belief in something. But for you to have that belief, think about if you were born into a different religion, you would still have that same belief, just with a different religion. What makes you so certain of your own religion, even though you didn't pick it? Some people have been born into a religion, then when they grew up, went to a different religion. For those people, I wouldn't say this applies at all, but that's a rare occurrence. Most people that are that follow religion is a religion that they were born into. So what makes you so certain of a religion that you didn't even choose, that your parents taught you and you were born into? And what makes you different from the other people that were born into different religions? What makes you so certain of your religion that it's true and the other person's religion is false when they were born into that religion the same as you? And that's an extra point that I want to add. I actually ended the video, but I thought of that point and I was like, oh, why didn't I say that? So just hmm. I think that's it. That's just my view on religion in general, and how I believe that religion just is just formed by people. Eventually, any society will form a religion because society needs a religion. Because not everyone can believe that. People need to believe that there's something after we die to cope with the aspect of death and all that. So even 100 years from now, 200. The funny thing is, we could go from, for example, let's jump in the future. For example, 5,000 years, new religions could form, and old religions could go into the past. And for example, let's say Islam, for example, which was said to be the last religion. 5,000 years from now, there could be a new religion that said that this was the last prophet. And if, oh, this is one thing I want to talk about also. Why did all the miracles happen when we weren't around to see them, basically? And I know it's, for example, it's hard, for example, for a miracle to happen when every single time a new generation is born, for a miracle to happen to prove that religion is real. That's very inconvenient, basically. But why that every miracle happened when we weren't alive and very in the past? Zero proof, no proofs at all. The thing is, for example, if God really wanted to prove religion, because God in the past did miracles to prove that that person was a prophet or that the religion is real. That happened all in the past where there was no cameras, like no physical proof that you cannot deny, basically. If God did a miracle now in this generation or in any future generations, it will basically solidify religion. It will basically ensure religion is 100% true and this is the religion that we should follow and everything, all of that. Because now, if any miracle happens now, it's easily documented, it's easily provable, and you'll be able to see that footage and see everything about that religion 5,000 years in the future. But in the past, it was just the max you could say, just word of mouth and just transcribing the events, which anyone could transcribe anything. And it's like a game of telephone, for example, when people go off word of mouth, where and you've definitely had that with your friends, where you tell your friend, oh, I met so and so and we did this. Then your friend tells another person and they add that to it, for example, and he for example punched him, and then he kicked him back, and he pulled out a gun, and just a long game of telephone. And eventually you get to a point where it's no longer the story you told your friend. It's totally different story. But because people like to elaborate and not elaborate, exaggerate, and make it sound grander than it is, because they're more impressive story then. Uh, what else? There was something I want to say also. What was it? What was it? Yeah, this last point. So God does his going to heaven or hell based on the good things and bad things you do. How can God go off that basis? For example, if someone was fully good, did nothing wrong, but he didn't follow God, he goes to hell. How does that make sense? Because if God just wants us to be good, then why? And for example, me not believing in God is just basically my brain thinking about the world and how things happen and all that, and believing in things. So why will God punish me for that? It doesn't make sense to me. Why someone who can all his life do good then go to hell because he didn't follow God? Because if God, for example, is all knowing and all forgiving, why would God punish me for not following him, because that would make God in a way, what's the word? as as what's the word I'm thinking of? Fuck. Uh, conceited, conceited. It will make God conceited. So why would God even care if God just wants the best for us? And that will come down to the point that I said previously, the where why would God even care about any of us, basically? And that's what made me agnostic currently. Well, I don't believe in any of the current religions, but I could believe that there is a God, but he's no longer here. And other than if any other like proof, proof like actual like proof that proves me gives me the evidence to go into any of the other religions. And that's it. Long rant, I know. I just hope you guys like got my point and like actually understood and engaged with what I was saying. Thank you guys for listening.